Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
This was a wonderful message from our Rabbi. May he rest in peace. Coming up next month, he will be gone now 4 years. And yet his messages are as applicable today as when he first spoke them. And I hardly recommend that you listen to him again because he had so many points. There's so many things that he spoke about. And I was speaking with a gentleman today, during this past week, who knows Hebrew. He's Israeli, and he was telling me how he can't understand "vanaseh v'nishma," which means you are to do and to obey. He says, "How can you do something before you understand it, or obey? By obeying something." And then do it, which is what Rabbi said. I said, there's a difference between somebody telling you to do something. You're not sure whether it's true or not. You don't really trust them. You don't know. He's another human being. He's not God. So why should we just do what he says? Of course, you have to check it out. As a matter of fact, the Torah says, or the scriptures say, that there is wisdom in the counsel of many. But here in this case, when we as Israelites, when we were standing at Mount Sinai and we said, "V'naseh v'nishma," we will do and we will obey, or we will listen. We will listen, like when you say to your children, "Listen to me," you want them to obey you. But he said to do first. First of all, he was speaking about what? Who was speaking, number one, first? It was the God of the universe, the creator, who never lies, who is perfect, the only thing that's perfect. There is not one human being who is perfect. Then what he said to obey was, we were standing at the base of Mount Sinai. We had just heard him speak the 10 Commandments. This is what he was talking about. The basic principles, the 10 basic commandments that were given written in stone by the hand of God, given to us as his messengers, who he created to bring to the rest of the world. If we don't keep these, how do we expect anybody else to keep them? If we don't share them, then the world is doomed. So not only do we need to learn to trust the God who gave them to us so that we would do them, and then in the doing, we would learn to understand why we needed to obey them. So it's a process. And I loved how he talked about the journeys. When I first became a believer, when I turned back to God, and it was actually through Christianity that I turned back to God. At one of the conferences that I went to and one of the lectures, what they had told us to do is to make a life map. And that's a really good idea for us as people, to sit down and write down all the major events that happened in our lives that made an impression on us, or that brought us on the next part of our journey and next part of our path in our walk. At the beginning, we may not have known that God was with us. Today we know. And this is what we're talking about in this journeys, Masei, the journeys of Matot, the tribes. And we can compare ourselves to that because we're part of a tribe of believers who are on a journey. But in our own lives, I think of all the places that I was, what I learned from them, and how even now there are times when I am forced to go back to a place that I thought I had dealt with in my life as part of my past, but I saw that I'm at the next stage. I haven't fully dealt with it. I may have thought I did at the time, but it's like peeling an onion. There's so many different layers, so many different levels to healing, to our growth. And I think we're going to continue on this path until the day we die, right? And he said that, why did we stop at the promised land? Why didn't we enter? Because the lessons are not in the goal, but in the journey. And each and every day we're on a journey. And when we take God with us on this journey, when we allow him to search our hearts, to help us to deal with the everyday issues that keep coming up in our lives, something miraculous happens. We may go through days that are just so difficult. I had one of those this week. And so many of the issues that I thought I had dealt with in my past were coming right up again. And there was nothing that I could do to deal with it. And I finally had to just leave it in the hands of God. And by the end of the day, I watched how God moved in my day to bring me to a place where I could see that he was with me, and where I could see that other people struggling through the same things, how they feel. And it gave me more humility. It made me softer. It doesn't mean that the next day I'm not going to struggle with the same things. But like, remember what Rabbi used to tell us, that life is like a spiral. When we're walking with God, we look at a spiral, and the spiral is always going upwards. We take 2 steps forward, but only 1 step back when we're on a spiral. If we're not walking with God, we're on a downward spiral, and we keep falling and falling deeper and deeper until we give our lives over to our Creator. So where are we on this spiral? Each of us can only answer that for ourselves. He spoke about, and by the way, we cannot change anybody else. If somebody else has hurt us or done something that we think is wrong, we can't change them. We can't say, oh, look what you did to me. Look how you hurt me. We can change ourselves, how we accept it, how we see it. We never know the journey. You can't walk in this, you can't judge another person until you've walked in his footsteps or her footsteps. We never know where they are, but we can know where we are. He spoke about making an oath. It starts with the oaths that we were told to, that we had to deal with. And I think that the perspective that I had about when the woman had to make the oath, and if she was under her father or her husband, if he heard what she said and he annulled it, she was free. He took it on for him. But if she didn't, or if he didn't annul the oath, she would be required to suffer the consequences for it. And if we go right back to the very beginning, right back to Adam and Eve, God gave Adam a role, a position, to have dominion over everything, over his wife, Eve. It had nothing to do with her capability or her understanding, but his role was to take care of the world, of the animals, everything that existed. That was the role of the male. But Adam allowed himself to be influenced by Eve. She allowed herself to be influenced by the adversary. And she convinced Adam to eat the fruit. To me, this was the beginning of our downfall. The male in our community, in our congregation, in our homes, and in our lives need to learn how to take seriously their role as the head, as the leaders, as a spiritual head of the family, of the home, of the city, of the nation, of the country. And we as women have to allow our husbands to take, or our leaders to take that place, to take that role. And it's not easy. We as women were created the last of God's creation, the final crown of his creation. We were given something extra, something that the men didn't have. And that was the ability to hold a life within our womb and to give birth to a being. No man, no matter how much he may want to be like a woman, no man was given that role, cannot be like a woman. And our roles are all being reversed right now. We have lost that in this society. And we can see how even whole nations have suffered and have fallen. Whole empires have fallen for that reason. It's falling into a moral decay because we have forgotten our roles. Rabbi also spoke about one of the reasons that the empires have fallen, and that has to do with anti-Semitism. The latest empire that we are experiencing right now is the empire of America, the Americas. South America has fallen because of that, where anti-Semitism, and he spoke about Venezuela, which and Yanet and Alejandro come from Venezuela, and they are really suffering now, watching their own family suffering in that country. But Rabbi said that the first mistake that Venezuela made was to kick out its Jews, was the hatred of the Jews. Whether we deserve it or not, and very often we don't deserve to be loved because we have been disobedient, but we are the apple of God's eye, and He is holding us in the palm of His hand, and He gave us a constitution to bring to the rest of the world. We have value. Each person has value. So if America does not change its attitude, and many now are starting to turn when it comes to standing against anti-Semitism, protecting their Jews, protecting Israel, standing with Israel. If America does not do that and starts to abuse its Jewish population, then we are watching the decline of America, which will at some point happen because the final empire will be Israel. And it won't be an empire that's guided by politicians or religions or democracy or socialism or communism or any of these isms. What will rule will be at the top, guiding Israel, will be the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And until my people, our people, return to the God of our fathers, and I'm not talking about religion with all its empty traditions, because that's why God said, I hate your Sabbaths. I hate your festivals. He wasn't talking about his Sabbaths and his festivals. He hates what we did with them. So until we as a people return, and those who are with us, if you'll notice the people who are here with us, many of them are non-Israelites. So we think. Maybe they are, and they don't know it. Maybe we as Jews who think we're Jews, we're not. Maybe we were converted somewhere in the past. The issue isn't our blood. The issue is, who is our God? And God said, if you listened well when I read the 10 Commandments, everything was given to us and the stranger who lives among us, the commonwealth of Israel. Sometimes we'll see in the Torah where it says Judah and Israel. Judah means the Yehudim, the Jews, those who, the praisers of God, those who are born to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Israel are like the Calebs, like the Obadiahs, like the Ruths, like the Rabbi Akiva, those proselytes who came to live with us and became part of us. We are one people under Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The message is not a complicated one. It's simple. But because we're so steeped in religion, we can't see the simple message. People want to know, well, who are you? What is your, what do you believe? What are your rules that guide your particular denomination in this community? The only rules that we have are the 10 Commandments. Everything else is commentary. Everything else is how we apply these to our lives. And that's the difficult part. That's our struggle. And each and every day, we are going to have that struggle because none of us are perfect. Even our Messiah, Yeshua, was not perfect. Moses was not perfect. Moses brought us the commandments. Yeshua brought us back to these commandments. The world tries to make men into gods. There is only one, the Yud He Vav He, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How we follow him should be mirrored in the walk that our Messiah Yeshua took and in our walk that Moses took. They give us the principles to live by. Now it's up to us. We can't point a finger. Oh, look, you're not doing what they said. Because remember, when we point a finger, there's 3 pointing up to God, 3 pointing at us, and 1 pointing up to God. Anyway, I didn't do that very well. But honestly, we can only look at ourselves. And as soon as we start judging others in the way that we are judged, so will we. In the way that we judge others, so will we be judged. So that's the end of today's message. I ask you to listen again. It was filled with wisdom. And I wish, yes, Brian, what would you like to say? You're on mute, Brian. I can't hear what you're saying.
I didn't hear the 10 Commandments.
We read the 10 Commandments during the
What?
liturgy. During the liturgy, maybe you were having your lunch. But I read it today. We read it every Shabbat. And we should know them by heart by now. So that if
And you
anyone,
finished up with the Jeremiah.
pardon me?
When you somebody read the first part of the Torah, and you
Yeah, well,
finished up.
but this was before. It was during the liturgical service that we read every week. We read the 10 Commandments. And if you want, I'll send them to you so you can read them and listen to them. And I made a whole series of videos about the 10 Commandments. I don't know if you heard those. I made them actually beginning for children. And then I realized that we're all like children and we all needed to hear them.
Today I must have had a short sleep because I woke up on the second part of the Jeremiah.
Okay, well, I hope you slept well. I was falling asleep part of it myself, believe me. So, but it's Shabbat. You can take a nap. But I highly recommend listen to the message again. Read the 10 Commandments. It's very simple, Brian. The first one, there's only one God. Don't have any others because he's the one who led us out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery. He doesn't want us to be a slave anymore. Don't make any images. Don't bow down to anything. And don't take his name in vain. Don't put things in his mouth. Don't say things that God never said. Number 4, keep the Sabbath. Don't work on the Sabbath. Don't make your family work on the Sabbath, your children, your workers, if you own a business. Don't say you have a Shabbos Goy. There is no Shabbos Goy. We are to bring the Gentiles to keep the Shabbat the way we do. The
This
fifth
is
one,
a place full of Shabbos goys.
yeah, well, there are no Shabbos Goys. There should not be any. The fifth one, honor your mother and father. Why? So that we may live long upon the earth. Those 2 middle commandments are for us to live long, healthy, happy lives. And then the last 5, how do we love our neighbor? Don't steal from them. Don't commit adultery, which means don't adulterate anything. Don't steal. Don't murder them. Don't commit premeditated murder. Don't speak about them to destroy their character. No gossip. And don't accept bribes to bring down the life of a neighbor. And the last one is don't covet, which means it's harder than be jealous. Don't do anything it takes to get what doesn't belong to you. These are things that we have to fight against every single day of our lives. We battle with these things. And that should be enough, just those 10. We don't have to worry about everything else. A lot of these things are added. And God said, do not add and do not take away anything from my word. So with that, we'll say, have a Shabbat Shalom, have a wonderful day, and God willing. And I'm thinking of starting the Torah is for everyone again this coming week. I'm going to decide by the end of the week, but I think that's what I'm going to do because I really miss it, and other people have told me they miss it too. And we're starting next week, Devarim, and it's a fabulous, fabulous parasha. So again, Shabbat Shalom, and we wish you
Shabbat
all the
shalom.
best. Shabbat Shalom. Have a
Shabbat
wonderful day.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
shalom. Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.